Good evening and welcome to Around the Lake, a production of the Ithaca Times and the Finger Lakes community newspapers. I'm here today to host the show. I'm Bill Chaisson, the editor of the Ithaca Times. Over here to my left is Josh Brokaw in the shades. That's how you can tell he works for the Ithaca Times. Staff reporter for the Times. And then on my far left is Bryan VanCampen, our film and theater critic, here to talk about the Hangar Theater and This Week in Films. We're going to start out this show talking about our cover story that isn't on the cover. And so the...
Say our feature.
yeah, a really large feature, which is called Veterans Are Here to Tell Us This is Memorial Day. So Memorial Day is on Monday, and it is, of course, commemorating people who died in the various wars that we fought. And Josh, you talked to people who had been veterans in 4 different wars.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the strange thing, let's say, about writing a Memorial Day piece, as we've discussed, is you can't talk to the people you're memorializing. So it was sort of a...
Could have a seance, I suppose.
Well, yeah, this is an area with a rich spiritualist history. But so yeah, it's kind of the idea. Just talk to some veterans and get their memories, because when we have them,
you had
living,
some sort of anti-war pacifist veterans. You started out with, I started you out with Jim McConkey.
Mm-hmm.
What was his story?
Jim McConkey area. I was looking him up a little bit. It's stuff in the New Yorker, long time writer.
Yeah. Well, he's 92. So.
A lot of books. So he actually edited. He said he was when he was drafted in '44 that like screwing on his bayonet made him feel ill. He considered himself a natural-born pacifist. But once he got overseas to France, in I think it was late '44, he just basically told division headquarters, who's in the 26th, the Yankee division, that we need a division newspaper. So until he got rolled up over in a Jeep crash and was sent home in April, he was editing the weekly newspaper. So he had some funny sort of, kind of catch-22-esque stories, because he wasn't really, it wasn't really a front at that point. It was after D-Day, so it was kind of fluid, and everyone was just everywhere. And they had this publicity man who I mentioned there, Henry Miscock, who sounds kind of like the trickster type, stole a Jeep off the beach from another division because they needed a delivery vehicle, because they had to go get the paper, bring it back. So McConkey said the only real soldier-like thing he did was steal a wheel from a motor pool when they needed a replacement, because their art director couldn't drive and kept driving on flats. So so he had some interesting stuff. He was showing me he had the original copies of the paper, which someone should digitize, because they're
probably getting crumbly.
They're getting a little crumbly. But
but Don Smith of Newfield, he was a little different from the Korean War.
He was, that was a man who was definitely in the middle of some really battles that sound pretty awful. I mean, because Korea was, the heaviest fighting was hills, taking hills, and hills that ended up gaining nicknames like Heartbreak Ridge and Pork Chop Hill, that got their own books, essentially, these 2-3 week battles. And he, talking to him, there wasn't like, sometimes I've done these sort of interviews before, and sometimes guys who are in action, they'll have this 1 or 2 really specific, I was here on this day. Like his was just like, obviously this,
week
battle
after
start,
week
we
after
kept
week.
going. Yeah, so he'd have these little anecdotes that came to mind. But he, I think I wrote in there a lot of guys that I've talked to in Korea had, like, they got like a week of R&R in Japan. They all have like this, funny like story of being in Yokohama or wherever. And Don never got there. Like the R&R his unit got was, you just lost 500 men in a battle. Go guard this prisoner camp that was consistently having its like brass fired because they would riot, and like the communists were doing their own internal purges and stuff. So yeah, that was the safe place he spent in Korea, not fighting. So.
And the Vietnam vet that you talked to was a CB.
Roger Beck, yeah. So,
Yeah.
which he turned his CB experience, which they're the people who drive bulldozers, or they're the Navy construction. He ended up coming back here. He was a Cornell grad, joined the reserves, kind of early '60s. So, Vietnam wasn't really. That was, I think, still when it was just advisors over there. So, and then he ended up, being basically on quarry detail in Vietnam in '67 after Tet. So, and he was a guy who said basically went over there and whenever he talked to natives, they were like, yeah, we don't really know why you're here. So that got him coming home and doing more research, as it were.
Yeah.
But he also came home and just started buying bulldozers and had his own thing. He started out as a contractor. Now he does rentals and sales and still doing it, almost, 50 years later?
Yeah.
So,
So the last guy that you talked to was Nathan Lewis, Nate. And he's got this, the Veteran Sanctuary, which you didn't really talk about too much.
well, the Veteran Sanctuary is actually no more.
Okay.
As an organization, I think it was just, a small core of people who couldn't keep it rolling because, these things come and go. But yeah, he's working part-time, I guess, kind of when needed with this combat paper press. She was the first vet to put out a kind of a chat book of poetry, I think back in '09. And he's done 2 of them now. They do these sort of limited runs where they pulp up uniforms, and I think they also bought it's there's kind of the paper making,
Right.
Handmade paper making aspect
Well, I think
to it.
it's left over from the Veteran Sanctuary, and the point of the Veteran Sanctuary was to get soldiers to learn how to do things together besides kill people.
Yeah.
And so they learned to make paper together, is one thing. They also gardened.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that he said to me, was like, you got to figure out, because guys coming up, volunteer force, which is heavily recruited out of high school.
Yeah.
You have guys, he was 21 when
Right.
he got out, so he's like, I've been a veteran my whole adult life, because
Yeah.
people typically are like, oh, it's people with the VFW in their 60s. Like, that's not how it is anymore, at least. So, but yeah, the paper press is interesting because they do a fair amount of workshops. They do whole week workshops and at colleges, and just like doing both the letter arts sort of thing.
And he was in Iraq
Yes.
as opposed to Afghanistan.
And in an artillery division, which wasn't really doing artillery stuff because the
They didn't
Iraq
need it.
invasion, they didn't need it. So they were just like, you guys guard like Revolutionary Guards ammo that's just been laying around. And he described it as sort of a Mad Max sort of experience, because they were right after the invasion, and it was before, like the real new equipment started showing up. They're talking about really equipment from the U.S. Army circa 2000, after probably the least intense decade in a while. So they were just like, hey, here, take your truck and drive around and take these missiles where people can't get their hands on them. And just really kind of just thrown out there and just running around Baghdad, around the
Yeah,
Queens
he
zone.
said, I think you said that, or he said in your article that trucks were blowing up because they weren't.
Well, they didn't. I mean, they just have this big. He also told me, I didn't put it in there, but that people would come and go to these depots, I guess you could call them, warehouses, and they would just like chop up the crates and leave the munitions laying there. Because
Okay.
people needed firewood, so they would just come like in the night and take the crates. And
Wow.
like that was the sort of thing that was going on.
Huh.
And then just leave the missile or bullets or whatever was there, like just laying there in the
Yeah.
warehouse. So.
So most of these people saw people die.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly.
And that's what Memorial Day is for, all those people.
That's the idea. So.
Well, that was the non-cover story. What's on the cover here, I'll show this, is the big story in the Business Times this week, in the Ithaca Times. There you go, thank you. And it is about the what to do with the old county library, which is at the corner of Cayuga, North Cayuga and West Court. And it's been sitting there, sort of used for storage and a few people's offices in the ground floor. And the county was considering selling it, but now has gone through this process of sort of seeing if there's interest in making any proposals to do something with it. They got a bunch of those, and they said, well, let's put out an RFP, a request for proposals. And so they got, basically it came down to 3. Some people dropped out along the way. And 2 of these proposals want to tear down the old library entirely and put up an entirely new structure. And the remaining one would like to use sort of the shell of the old library, to not tear it down entirely, but remake it. And that particular project is led by this consortium. I think the doctor's name is Franklin.
Yeah.
And the Stream Collaborative, led by Noah Demarest, but also including, I think his name is Chris Park. I may have that last name wrong. The other guy is Rob Marash, who I remember from the BBW. And all those 3 guys are the Stream Collaborative, and there's more people too. And they're the ones who want to rebuild the building as the lofts at something or other.
Yeah.
And there's 22 apartments.
Yeah, because that proposal is a significantly smaller number.
Yeah.
Of
And it's
units than the
it's
other
got a
2.
much smaller tax abatement plan too. It's like a 7-year tax abatement one. Whereas the other one, which is a much bigger project, it's many more apartments, is this Rochester company called Cornerstone. And Cornerstone wants to tear down everything and build up something entirely new. And we do have a picture of all of these.
They should call it the Dewey Decimal Suites.
That's why I'm looking at it. But here's the Rochester. Jump on that. See that? There. And
There we go.
so there's the Rochester plan. And this is the corner of Cayuga and Court right there. So there's Cayuga going that way and Court going this way. And they want to build a bigger building, but they want like a 30-year tax abatement plan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's kind of like, ooh.
One question I had that I don't know, because I haven't had much coverage of this. 'Cause it's more the county level, so Carrie's more on it. But
Yeah.
when they say affordable housing, those 2 other proposals, I think both those
Yeah.
units are in the 60s. Would they actually be going through that affordable housing, like the grant process, or is that
Probably. I
them
think you
saying-
kind of have to.
Because that's interesting, because then it's also dependent on whether they get the money from the state. Like, for example, this year,
Oh,
like
that's
the area
interesting,
didn't get any, like INHS or any of those.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing awarded in Ithaca for a new project. Now, I don't know what
Yeah,
proposals
I don't know.
were in.
That's a good question for
but,
down the road here.
yeah.
Like whoever gets picked.
Yeah.
Because that's where we are now. Here's the, this is the final one, which is, this is the Frost, Travis, and Chris Hyde are in charge of Travis Hyde. And they hired Holt Architects to design this baby here. And it looks kind of Japanese, which to me is a compliment. But people are wondering whether it'll fit in with the neighborhood. And they are also going to tear down the old building and put up something entirely new. And I don't remember what their tax abatement thing is. But interestingly, they make I think I've got this right, and I guess I should make sure. But there was also the question as to whether or not people are going to pay a living wage while it's built, and then whoever works there afterwards, and various. And yeah, I won't recapitulate it here because I'm not exactly sure, but that will weigh heavily, and not everybody came down on the same foot on that one. So whoever is prepared to pay a living wage, whoever perhaps is most likely to get the funding, as you point out, and whoever is going to build an attractive building, and whether or not they want to tear it down. All of these things are going to be weighed by this county committee, and they'll choose one of these 3 proposals and go forward. So that's we'll have to talk about that again as we go forward here. The school election, I just was surprised. Right here in Ithaca, I'm going to refer to my phone here to get some numbers for you.
I believe ABC News is doing that on the regular now to show how
They're
cool,
referring to their
cool
phone?
Yeah, David Muir,
That's
SC
funny.
grad, is very much all about having the
Having everybody just checking their
tech
phone
on
all the time.
the tech on there.
Look,
reading
they're
stuff
they're
off.
one of us.
Yep.
Well, the surprise in Ithaca was that there were 8 slots and 8 candidates and 4 slots, and only one of the incumbents got back.
Yeah,
in.
1 out of 2. Sean Bradwell.
Or Eversley Bradwell, yeah.
Yes, and he was elected. And he was elected. I guess they did it. I'm actually not entirely sure.
And
But
then
there was a short term to
right,
fill out the term
to fill out Seth
for,
Peacock's, yeah.
who also was running. So
Yeah,
he was,
and so
wasn't technically
he
an
did not
incumbent.
get back in.
But
This was like people asking for a regime change here.
I mean, my sense was, and this is all, it's hard to tell. We didn't do exit polling or something.
Yeah.
But the people who were elected, 2 of them were endorsed by the Teachers Association, and it does seem, and another one, Ann Reichlin, has been very active in this Save Our Schools group,
Yeah.
and she's been at every board meeting since
Well,
I've been here.
Moira Lang and Jen Curley are both former teachers.
Sure. So I think that's why they got the
Yeah, I think so.
association endorsement.
Yeah.
So yeah, my feeling was, I mean, you never know how many teachers or what have you, but there has been this activity because of the Common Core and the testing questions. So like Ms. Reichlin, for example, has been sending out emails, like 3 emails a week of different information and articles, and so like there's this sort
Well,
of
this is going to be interesting.
informal network that's built up, I think.
Yeah,
So that probably had something to do with it. I would venture.
I'm not. I guess I can't go through all the communities with their different results, but Trumansburg didn't even have enough candidates. They needed to get a write-in candidate because they had 2 slots to fill and only 1 candidate, which was an incumbent who was running again. But Michelle Wright, who's the deputy supervisor of the town, threw her hat in the ring like the day before or whatever and got 220 votes, which I thought was pretty slick.
That's a pretty fair amount.
So she's now on the school board, as well as being in part of the town government.
She must like meetings a lot.
She's a very patient and smart woman. So, Donna Missler and Rick Rogers were reelected in Spencer Van Etten. Let's see what else we got here. South Seneca, Mike DePerna and Paul Kelly won seats, and Jody Vancelo got in as well. So, yeah, I don't know. Oh, Newfield, Missy Rhinone, who's been on for quite a while, she got voted out. Linda Corbel, who used to be on the board, is now back on again. And William Scott Jackson, whom I don't recognize that name, he is now on the board. So that's kind of fascinating. But the general overall feeling that I got, and we're going to have to check into this. I guess are you going to write this story?
Sure.
About yeah.
What,
of
another
just like
story?
what happened
Sure.
here, because a lot of incumbents got thrown out.
Yeah, I've been calling around
So
trying to get a
did
feeling.
all this
so
state level stuff about testing and teacher tenure?
that's kind of my guess.
Yeah, that's
is-
our working hypothesis.
Yeah,
That
but
brought new voters in, and they voted for different people.
yeah. So I'm
it's
trying to run
kinda
up
interesting.
some older returns from ICSD to see if there was any turnout spike or anything like that. So, although it might be hard to tell also because
Yeah.
you don't have there's the big budget thing last year. So,
Well, yeah, we probably should look at more than just 1 year.
Yeah. So,
I don't think anybody had like tax cap problems this year, so that didn't really
Yeah.
enter into it.
yeah.
But let's see, what do we have time for here? The other thing that you covered, which was kind of interesting, was this house that speaking of schools, anybody who drives up Lake Street to the high school passes this empty white house right next to Fall Creek, with the creek going up to the Ithaca Falls behind it. And that's been empty for a long time, and now they're going to tear it down, it sounds like.
Yeah, unless they do something cool with it, like build a tower.
Right.
Or the Creeker expands, or a cafe. I think a Creeker annex.
Creeker?
The Fall Creek House. An annex there. Maybe they
Just
could
a
put,
porch.
Yeah, put like a craft brew
Cantilever
stuff
it
on
out
there.
over the.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see the falls.
So anyone with ideas can go to the city and tell them what's up.
Okay,
I
but
mean,
nobody's going to live there anymore.
I guess no one has for a while.
Yeah.
I got in touch with the email with Lee Houghton, I believe it was
Leah.
her name, and she said her husband Jim Novak. I haven't heard back from him, but was thinking about doing renovations. They own the house and the adjoining property until about 90, and but then this Recreational Rivers Act
Right, it was passed.
kind of like threw wrenches into that. So I don't know how long it's been empty, but you could definitely see whatever they do with the house. There's also this adjoining property. It's about 610. I think it's 0.64 acres or something.
Yeah.
There's sort of like a natural amphitheater, like bowl there, right behind the house, and then you could totally see, at least for 40 or 50 feet, the ability to build, your sort of standard like state park staircase, because there are some really nice overviews. Not that I've been on that private property or anything. And then it gets pretty steep and kind of a built-up rim, but there's definitely sort of probably you could
So
do.
it's not private anymore, though, right? It's owned by
Well,
the city?
technically, it's right now until Common Council passes this, because they have to withhold it from tax auction. That's
Okay.
the idea, or otherwise it would just go on the block.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it seems like most of the people, like the Natural Areas Commission people who've worked on it, their default idea would be, we tear the house down and just kind of, I don't know what exactly, but you can see like some sort of little overlook off the sidewalk there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of park space, especially with them making improvements to the other side of the park.
Okay. So we'll have to watch that.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Otherwise, they'll still sit there.
All right. Well, thanks. So, Bryan,
Yes.
you talked with Jen Waldman.
Yeah, and if anybody is interested in reading the whole interview,
I put it up.
when the talk is that good, I like to do sort of a short version. Well, we only have so many words that we can write in the print version, and if the conversation goes well, I try to transcribe the whole thing, so
Right.
that, for the hardcore fans.
Yeah, and it'll be it's
basically-
online
yeah.
now.
Yeah, I
but
saw
I'll
it.
put
I
the
saw it
link-
before I came
I'll
down.
put the link in, so
Yeah.
people can get one to the other.
Yeah, we had a really nice. I had not talked to her before that. I've certainly talked to other
Okay.
past artistic directors in detail, but it was my first time talking to her and just getting a sense of that funding is scarce, and you're seeing sort of certain changes. One of the changes is that the hangar went from 5 shows to 4 shows.
Oh,
I think a year before Jen Waldman took over.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And you're also seeing a lot of these. What's very popular right now are these sort of things like they're doing a show called The Hound of the Baskervilles, where all the parts will be played by 3 people.
Uh-huh.
They're doing Tally's Folly with a cast of 2. God of Carnage is 2 couples. So you're getting what I'm like. They're having to come up with plays that have fewer characters.
Right.
I think Spring Awakening will probably be being their musical, will probably have the biggest cast
Yeah.
of the summer. But just how they have to sort of find plays that can sort of be done on their mission statement, which is to get these things done on a budget. And even though they are a nonprofit, she did say that one of the things they're working very, very, very passionately on is getting back that 5th show.
Okay.
So hopefully that'll be just something that happened for a few years, and then they went
Do you
back.
know if they actually do slightly longer runs with the 4, or did they shorten the season?
They shortened the season.
Oh, okay.
Even Little Shop of Horrors from last year is only 8. When you think about it, they have it's like 8 or 9 characters. It's fairly compact.
Do you recall when the first show starts?
I don't. Oops. But check your local listing.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're at all
Check your
interested,
story.
you're gonna go and.
It's in early June.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think it might be June 10th, but
Yeah.
you could take a look.
Something like that.
And it's The God of Carnage,
God of Carnage.
which
right.
has been performed by the old Reader's Theater.
Well, actually, the this is the third time that Spring Awakening has been done in this area. I was in the
Spring
first.
Awakening too, yeah.
I was in the first one.
That was
Up
at the Cornell
Cornell Melodramatics.
Melodramatics, yeah.
And then it was done at Ithaca College, and now so it's certainly one of those. She wanted a rock show.
Right.
She wanted a
This
show
is
with
Duncan Sheik.
yeah.
Wrote
This is
the
Duncan Sheik, and it's definitely more rock oriented than sort of the more classical musicals, which I think would also have to be done with a larger cast.
Yeah.
But yeah, Spring Awakening was sort of that was the reason that was picked, was that she wanted like electric instruments and more of a rock sound. And as far as God of Carnage, she wanted to definitely have a female playwright, because
Right.
she said they're still having a hard. There are female playwrights, of
Sure.
course, but trying to find somebody who's relevant and sort of and again can sort of be done with the budget constraints that they're probably having. Two couples having in something almost real time, I think, having kind of meeting to discuss their kids, and
Yeah.
they get more and more childish as the
Yeah, I've
evening
seen it.
goes on.
It's kind of makes you squirm.
Yeah. Yes. And so that's out this week, and my review of two films. One's opening this Friday at Stamopoulos, and the other's opening next Friday. The one that's opening Friday is called Good Kill. It's the new film from Andrew Niccol, who's kind of got in. Are we wrapping up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So just let's hear about
Yeah.
Good Kill.
Good Kill is stars Ethan Hawke as a former military pilot who's now piloting drones in a shack outside of Las Vegas with a joystick. And I really liked it a lot. It's the first time he's worked with Ethan Hawke since Gattaca, which was his debut back in '97. He also wrote The Truman Show, this guy. So he's got interesting ideas about people watching other people that don't know they're being watched. And he said that there were things that he found out in his research that he actually couldn't put in the film because people would have just said, no, that's ridiculous. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, these guys spend a certain amount of their day piloting joysticks, and then they go down into Las Vegas and to where they live, and they play games. They play shooter games all night long.
God, okay.
Also, I wanted to mention a documentary on Netflix called Stripped, which is they interviewed 70 different comic strip artists, from people that we remember from the print days to people who were doing all digital comics, and it's fascinating because they're all sort of talking about.
Where's that?
It's on Netflix Instant View.
Oh, okay.
If you have Netflix Instant View, I highly recommend it. I mean, they talked to like 70 different people, from Beetle Bailey to people that are just working on the web. Very, very cool. And they're all sort of pondering where comics are going to go.
Okay.
I don't want to say in the demise of print, because it's not dead yet.
Everyone should check that out.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's about all that we have time for here at Around the Lake. Thanks for joining us this week. This was Bryan VanCampen that you just heard talking, and Josh Brokaw that you heard talking before, and I've been talking the whole time. I am Bill Chaisson, and we will be back next week. And thanks to Joe Scaglione for the great opening montage. And